Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
The TARDIS lands in 22nd century Africa in the shadow of a dormant volcano. Angry teams are growing new foodstuffs in the baking soil to help feed the world's starving millions. But the Doctor and Rose have detected an alien signal somewhere close by. When a nightmare force starts surging along the dark volcanic tunnels, the Doctor realises an ancient trap has been sprung, but who was it meant for, and what is the secret of the eerie statues that stand at the heart of the volcano? Dragged into a centuries-old conflict, Rose and the Doctor have to fight for their lives as alien hands practice the arts of destruction all around them. Doctor Who, The Art of Destruction by Stephen Cole. Howdy beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well, hope you're all good. As per usual, as you heard in that absolutely wonderful plot summary done by yours truly, today we're going to be looking into Doctor Who, The Art of Destruction, the 11th book in the new Doctor Who Adventure Tales by BBC Books. But before we get into that, I want to do with housekeeping, because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So, to be kept up to date on everything and anything that I am watching, reading, playing and all that jazz, make sure that you follow me on Twitter, or X as it's now called, at Nerdstalgic_pod. Also, if you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Most importantly, the like and the comment. If you can do that right now before we crack on, I will absolutely adore you for evers and evers. Also, drop down a comment about the book, about anything Doctor Who related, or just praise or anything really. Just wherever you want to comment, put that down, because how YouTube works, any sort of engagement is worth tenfold one subscriber. So a subscription's lovely, but any like, any comment, any engagement boosts the video up huge and be able to be seen by a lot more people. So if you can do that at the beginning, it would be wonderful. Also, if you listen to this on Spotify and you haven't done so yet, please rate the podcast. I'm currently at 35 ratings at an average 4.48, 4.49, I think. And I want to try and get that up to 40 ratings by Christmas. And currently, it's the 15th of April as recording this. So there's a high potentiality that we can get there. But it all relies down on you wonderful people listening today. So if you haven't done so yet and you're listening on Spotify, please rate the podcast. I, again, would be grateful for all engagement on any platform that you find the podcast, because it helps me out greatly. So now that's out of the way, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the book by Stephen Cole, The Art of Destruction, Doctor Who. I am really, really excited for this one, but I'm also a bit apprehensive, and I'll explain why in a second. But before we get to that, I want to do a quick update. So for anybody who isn't aware, or who's jumping in straight into here, hello, welcome. But for anybody who is an old follower of the podcast and of this mini-series, basically, this is the part of the podcast where I update you on my Doctor Who adventure so far. So far, it's been going really, really well. I've been watching a lot more Doctor Who in terms of the more obscure side of Doctor Who. As of recording this, hopefully, Screams of Chakra should be released, so you'll all know about that. I had a fantastic time with that. I also did The Curse of Fatal Death for Red Nose Day about a month or so back, which was absolutely wonderful. I enjoyed my time there. I've also been deep diving into Big Finish a lot more recently, so I listened to two Big Finish audio productions. The first one being, or when it decides to load, being Doctor Who Lupus Gajoux, Garoux. It's a fifth Doctor, Pete Davison, story with Turlo. It's absolutely fantastic. I don't want to go into any spoilers about it, but I absolutely adored this one. It was a 5 star for me, which really surprised me because when I saw the rating, it was only a 3.34% rating out of 44 ratings on not Big Finish, on Goodreads, and I was a bit sort of worried. Not that I usually put a lot of weight into reviews, especially with like things like Big Finish, how not many people will listen to it, and it's very a niche market. But going into it and seeing how incredible it is and how well written, and how well acted it is, voice work, oh, it's just incredible, and the twists and the turns and everything about it is just mwah, the coup de grace. And then the next one I listened to was Doctor Who Dust Breeding. This one is Fester McCoy and Sophie Aldridge. This one was incredible as well. It delves in the darker side of the Doctor, but also delves in with art and like Edard Munch, who did the Scream, and the twists and the turns. The whole idea of how is it that this painting is now on a barren dust planet, in the middle of middle of nowhere in the universe. It makes no sense, but as this plot unravels, it starts to make sense. And I love whenever the Seventh Doctor is in Big Finish, because you know it's going to be dark, you know it's going to be some sort of wicked, evil sort of twist, and I always have a fantastic time with that. I think the next one after that, because I've only got to 21 so far. This is part of their monthly range, by the way. This is what they were releasing from like 1999 all the way up to, well, currently this list only goes all the way up to 2007, but I'm sure they've done more since. But I'm only on the 21st one. I think if we go all the way down to back where I was, back with 21, my next one is Doctor Who Blood Tide, and that looks to be a Colin Baker story, Fifth Doctor story. Not Fifth Doctor, Sixth Doctor story. Sorry, pardon me. Fucking slap on the wrist, Luke. You got it wrong. You're not a Doctor Who fan. But yeah, I'm really loving my time with Big Finish. I haven't gone back to the TV show yet because in my last episode I explained that this book, The Art of Destruction and The Price of Paradise, these two adventures take place before the Satan Pit. And before that episode, well, for the two sort of episodes, because they're two sort of continuous stories. Before those two stories, these adventures take place. So I wanted to finish these two adventures in book form. Then I'll finish off the series. Then I'll probably go back and rewatch the series as a whole. So I'll rewatch it twice, and then I would do a review of the series overall. And yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be a fantastic time. So yeah, that's my adventure so far with Doctor Who. Hopefully, for all the things that I've posted, all the things that people have listened to, I hope everybody's liked them. As of like recording this, the Scream to Chakra, hasn't been released yet, but hopefully by the time this episode comes out, it had been released and people really liked it, enjoyed it. I had such a fantastic time, and I feel like we were robbed of Richard E. Grant as the Doctor. I know that he's been in Doctor Who since, playing villains or playing other characters, but to have him as the Doctor would have been a fantastic experience. Anyway, so that is my sort of Big Finish Doctor Who adventure update. As for my first impressions of this book, now, usually whenever I do any sort of introduction for any topic at all, whether it be a movie, TV show, video game, that sort of thing, I tend to do the introduction first before I watch the film, play the game, watch the show, all that jazz, because I don't want it to interfere with my thoughts in the beginning. That being said, the issue with this is the fact of when it comes to these books, because how long it takes me to read them and how long, because I don't get a lot of free time, you do have the issue of it taking so long. So what I tend to do is I get cracked. Yeah, that's a good word. Cracking on the book as soon as, so that I can get into the feel of it, the groove of it, as soon as possible, really. So this is my first impression so far. I've only read about 80 pages of the book so far, which is not a lot considering this is about 240 pages in total. But I really, really like it and I really enjoy it. one thing that I mentioned at the beginning was that I'm a bit apprehensive, and there's a reason that I'm apprehensive with this book is because even though I don't put a lot of weight on Goodreads on their sort of overall ratings on their end score star ratings, um, even though I don't put a lot of weight onto them, it's kind of like Rotten Tomatoes, really. I don't put a lot of weight into them. I tend to just experience the thing for myself, and I get my own opinions afterwards. But it's worried me is the fact of out of all Stephen Cole's Doctor Who books that I have read, this one is the lowest rated. He did The Monsters Are Inside, which was a Ninth Doctor and Rose story, which was fantastic. Pun not intended, but works fantastically. Um, that was around a 3.662 average rating. Then he did The Feast of the Drowned, which I did a review of, which I absolutely adored that book. That got a 3.70. And then he did this book, which had a 3.38, and then he did The Sting of the Zygons, which was a 3.63. Now, on average, Doctor Who adventure books, they don't go any higher than 4. Only a small handful of probably 2 or 3 have actually managed to reach 4 and above in terms of ratings. The rest sit around 360, 380, to be honest with you. But that being said, it's still a bit concerning when it's a 3.36, 38. And then when you look at all the reviews, they're very not negative, but very sort of disappointed. They're 3 stars, 2 stars, and it's very much the fact of, oh God, what is it that's so bad about this book that made people go, I don't like that. And so far, I don't know. I'm really not sure because the story and setting is interesting. It's set in 22nd century Africa inside a volcano, right? You have a group of sort of you have a doctor, not the doctor, a doctor, and you have the workers that work on this farm, and they're trying to grow this new type of super fungus so it could be used as a food that will save the world. All great, fantastic ideas. Then you have an interesting enemy that kind of reminds me of like the Blob or the Thing, or the Stuff even. It just reminds me of some sort of creature, like mutated blobberous creature. It's all fascinating and it's all very creepy. And so far, it's great. Again, granted, like I said, I'm only 80 pages in. There might be in the next chapter or two something that really goes, oh, this is terrible. So far, I haven't hit that wall, and I don't feel like I will because with Stephen Cole, he's never let me down. Of all the stories that I have read of his, he's been fantastic. He's done Big Finish as well, and I've listened to a few of his Big Finish audios, and I've enjoyed those. So he's a very competent writer. He's a good writer. He knows what he's doing. So I don't know. To be honest, I don't know why a lot of people have rated it so low. To be honest, but I'm willing to give it a go. Out of 5 stars, right? Only 281 people rated it 5 stars. That's 18%. Only 367 rated it 4 stars, which was 24%. 3 stars, which was 575 people, which is 37%. 2 stars, which was 245, which was 16%, and 1 star was 51 people. That's at 3%. Granted, it sits around the 3-star margin, which really is not bad. 5-star is excellent, incredible, change your life. A 4-star is incredible, it's fantastic, but it's not really like it's fantastic, but there's just something about it that really doesn't push it over the edge. The 3-star is just good. Like if you get a 3-star, it's a good book. Nothing more, nothing less. It's just good. 2-star is meh, not worth it. And then a 1-star is just don't bother at all. So for it to be on the good rating is not bad, but it's still quite worrying that most of my friends that have read this book on Goodreads have all give it a 3. So yeah, I'm a bit apprehensive, but I'm excited because again, it's Doctor Who and it's more stories with the 10th Doctor and Rose. So I can't really fault it at all. But yeah, that is all she wrote really for my first impressions and for the introduction really. Sorry if you heard things in the background. My family shouting me and stuff like that, so I do apologize if that gets picked up in the audio. If it did, I greatly apologize. Otherwise, don't listen to me, you didn't hear nothing. I don't have no family. I'm in a bunker down below in a vault, eating beans and just talking to myself. So I've got to keep up that facade. But all jokes aside, all that jazz. This is the introduction done. I'm going to go off now and finish this book. I'm really excited for it. And yeah, we'll see if it lets me down. You'll know in a couple seconds, and I'll find out in maybe a week or a month or two. Depends how long it takes me. We will see. Right, so I've not long finished the book, The Art of Destruction, and honestly, first impressions, it's a lot better than I was expecting. As I mentioned in the introduction, there was a lot of negativity. There was a lot of low scores, low stars on Goodreads. Everybody that I know who had read it had all had not overly negative, but like saying that it was lacking this, it wasn't good here, weren't as many strong points. Um, and to be honest, I'm surprised by my feelings that I'm about to share because my experience of this book is that it's actually pretty good. It's not great, like it's not like a 5 star, but it's I would still class it as a 4 star read. It's still pretty great. The characters are interesting. The whole twist and turn that this story goes into um, is quite fascinating as well. The aliens are really, really great. It kind of actually reminds me of one of the other um, Doctor Who books that was with the Ninth Doctor and Rose. I think it was the Winners Takes All. And anybody who hasn't read that story, kind of the long and short of it is that the Doctor takes Rose back to see her mum, and basically when he gets there, the Mickey's playing this new video game console that Jackie had gotten from the market, gotten for cheap because got like a deal at this place. And Mickey's playing this game. He's not very, very good, but there's been rumblings that people who've been playing this game has gone missing. So the Doctor goes, "Oh, give it here." He plays it. Obviously, the Doctor, being brilliant at everything, is brilliant at this game. Basically, wins this level. Then he's invited to go, "Congratulations, you've won this level. Come on down to so and so location, and you get your prize." So the Doctor goes down there, and I won't spoil the story, but the sort of twist to that story are the factions that are involved and these two warring aliens races. As I won't go into major spoilers because it's a fantastic read and it's a lot of fun. But that sort of plot point where you've got these two factions that are going to are at war with each other and that like they're at a never-ending battle. It's kind of the same here because you have alien races in this one. You've got the Valnaxi and you've got the worms as well. Worms, WORM instead of worms. Well, WRM. Sorry, it's how they're spelt in this book. And the whole twist and turn and the war about that and how they're involved comes a bit later in the story, but you still get this really interesting story with the humans. Because basically the story of this book is that the Doctor and Rose land in the 22nd century Africa underneath a volcano, and as they normally do, they get around, they go looking around. Next thing they know, they find themselves in like a sort of, how can I explain it really? A crop, basically, an outcrop of food being grown. Because apparently in the 22nd century, humanity is struggling to grow. There's not much fertile land, and that there are small pockets around the world, especially in Africa, that has untouched, virgin sort of fertile land that is being used to grow food to feed the world, basically. Um, and the Doctor and Rose find themselves getting sort of detained by this group of people who run the farm, saying they're spies, they're trying to steal their secrets and trying to steal crops for other people and that sort of thing. And as the story sort of goes on from there, you start to learn more about the people that run this farm, the organization that runs it, and you meet the head scientist and what he's trying to do and how they're trying to basically grow fungus that, because we all know, well, I say we all know, I know, and I'm think other people know this as well, but fungus will grow anywhere. Fungi is an incredibly versatile organic plant sort of fungus, it will grow anywhere under any sort of circumstances. Really, it's probably it's more than likely older than humanity at this point, fungus. And the idea is because it will grow anywhere, that could be the next revolution, the next sort of superfood that people in the future will live off. But it's just trying to grow it and make sure that it will grow in any sort of conditions. So they're trying to do a lot of gene splicing and a lot of scientific things that to me is very, very fascinating, very interesting sort of topic for Doctor Who to go into, especially that this book was written like in 2006, I think 2006, 2005, around about that time, which by that stage that it was considered like very futuristic, very Jurassic Park sort of thing, but nowadays it is something that is very possible and something that we are doing. So topics in that story really, really interest me. And then when it leads into the idea that it's not just mushrooms, that there is something more going on in these caves, and then you have the alien presence, and then it kind of just goes from there really, and that's when you meet the Valnaxi, who are a race of aliens that kind of like on their planet, and I love this sort of stuff whenever Doctor Who does it. And I love it when any sort of sci-fi really goes into depth of alien races. I'm just fascinated with other alien races and their cultures and how they all live. And it's one of my favorite parts about science fiction. But it's the lore behind the Valnaxi is that on their planet, they are so in tune with their planet that their planet is alive. And kind of like Avatar, really. Before Avatar did the whole AWA thing. If you know Avatar, you know that the Nave. Um, I can't remember what they're called now. Basically, the race that are in Avatar that they have AWA, so they're connected to the planet, they're connected to the trees, all the life and everything. It's all one big sort of living, breathing planet, really. And the Vanaxi are kind of the same sort of race where they're so in tune with themselves and so in tune with the race and so in tune with the planet that they use that to create art, to create sculptures, and they are some of the most beautiful, gorgeous sculptures in the whole of the universe, and that they are considered to be the most creative and most peaceful race ever. But the worms decided elsewhere, and when I say worms, they are literally what huge, giant worms with guns that shoot like dirt and maggots and all that sort of like red hot sort of dirt and maggots and all that. It's really interesting, really fascinating. But you find out that they're going to war, and that the Vanaxi have hidden, like, have basically sought refuge about 200 to 300 years prior to the events of this book, on Earth underneath this volcano, and that they had put their last sort of treasure, their last sort of treasure hoard, shall we say, of all their priceless possessions, trying to preserve their race under this volcano in sort of the lava tubes, as well as they're trying to hide themselves as well from the worms, so that their race kind of somewhat lives on. And sort of the story goes from there. I won't go any further because there's a lot more to it, and I don't want to spoil anything majorly. But it is a very interesting story, and I was just confused reading through it. I was like, any moment now, it's going to get crap. So it's going to happen. I'm going like, oh, this is a piece of crap. But it doesn't. There's never a moment. And again, this is my opinion. There was never a moment where I go, this is trash, and wanting just to put it down. I actually took my time with this book, unlike the other books. Well, I've enjoyed the other ones as well, but this one I actually took my time to read a bit, sit down, think about it, think about what is going on, and I haven't done that one since Feast of the Damned. And you all know how much I really, really enjoyed that one, and it was actually written by the same bloke as well, so it says a lot. But I was just sitting there, I'd read a few pages, and I'd sit there and think of, oh, so what's going on? Why are they doing this? Why is this happening? Why is this bloke, this alien Falteno? I can never pronounce his last name. It's he has a long name because Jax Emilian Falteno, or basically Faltato. If you can pronounce it, well done. I can't. I just called him Falt, or Fal, when I was right, just for ease of use to get through the story quicker. But I was wondering, like, why is Fal in the story? Why is he here? Like, what's it got to do with him? So each time somebody new, a new human, a new alien, or whatever sort of twist and turn would come up, I'd finish the chapter and dwell on it. And I haven't done that with any really book, for any book that I mostly read, for a long time. So take it as you will. If you've been following any sort of reviews that I've done of Doctor Who so far, take that as a big sign of pure enjoyment of like, this is one worth reading. And don't listen to the reviews on Goodreads. If you looked on there first, don't listen to them. And I'm not saying they're always wrong, not at all. But I say give it a go for yourself, really, because it is a lot of fun. And I'm already sitting here worrying that I might have spoiled a few things already by accident, just by how sort of infused I am in and how much I got into this story. But definitely, this one is to give it a go. If you've been following along so far, I've been reading along, don't be put off. Don't skip this one. Give it a go. And you might like it, like I have, or you might feel like everybody else. But again, that's kind of the fun side of reading, really, is the fact of not everything is going to appease everybody, but there is always something out there for everybody. And this book is one of those somethings that's right for me, you know. Before we get on to my overall thoughts, before we start to come to sort of wrapping it up, is that I want to do my continuity. So basically, this part of the review is whenever I read these books, I'll go back through them and I will make notes and things that I've noticed, like Easter eggs, mention like things that have been mentioned, interesting things like that. Really, that I feel like adds to the continuity of Doctor Who, and also shows that the writer is a fan and the writer has actually, maybe done their research or added things in for fans to find, or little Easter eggs. Because like they did it with the Rose and the Ninth Doctor books, you constantly were getting referenced to Bad Wolf. And obviously, if you're reading the books while the show was coming out, you probably wouldn't know what Bad Wolf means. But then when you watch the show and then read the books afterwards, you're like, oh, I know what Bad Wolf is. So it's those little moments that I really, really enjoy. And with each book so far, I found a lot of continuity things that they've added in, which really makes me smile. So the first one I found was sort of, you have the Eighth Doctor. He previously encountered a different kind of golem in Germany in December 1827 in the audio drama The Beast of Orlok. Right, so I thought that was interesting how you have different sort of golems, because they call the golems in this story for this little basically it's a piece of gold, but it's not gold. It looks like gold, but it's not. It's metamorphic. It moves. It's alive. It's like, it looks like goo, but when it attaches itself to you, it basically spreads all over your body. Kind of like the hand of Midas. Is it the hand of Midas that if you touch it, you turn to gold? Basically that sort of thing. Like if it touches you, you get turned into gold and you get turned into a golem. Absolutely fascinating. But I like the link. It just reminded me of the Eighth Doctor audio, The Beast of Orlok, with the different versions of a golem. Then there is a mention of the Krillitanes. I love the Krillitanes, and I'd love to see the Krillitanes come back. But the Krillitanes are mentioned. Obviously, we first saw them in the TV show School Reunion. And then the Killer Bracken technique, which is from the TV episode The Invisible Enemy. Finn, one of the characters in the story, used dead bodies to produce fungus, which he hoped would cultivate food. Davros used the same sort of patents of tranquil repose to reproduce food for a galaxy in famine on TV called the Revelation of the Daleks. And then the Venaxi rebuilt themselves from humans and hid under a volcano. Also, that might sound familiar if you know the TV episode The Fires of Pompeii, because the Pyroviles had also done the same sort of things. So it's just little things here and there that I noticed that I wanted to mention that I really, really liked, that made me smile. But yeah, my overall thoughts is basically reiterating what I said, just as the fact of give it a go. It might be for you, it might not be. But again, once again, Stephen Cole has not let me down. He's done a wonderful job here. He's a fantastic writer, and I enjoyed it. And I am looking forward to seeing what he writes next. More than likely, if he does write something next, it will probably be The Doctor and Martha, because I've only got one more book left, which is The Price of Paradise, and then I'm done. I'm done with the Doctor and Rose. So it should be interesting to see what the final book entails. That other book is also low rated, so we'll see if it warrants a low rating, or if it's going to be another fluke, or it's going to be another one of those where it was rated low, but I really, really enjoyed it. We will see in the next episode. But thank you very much for joining me. I know this part of the review is not very, very long, mainly because there's so much that goes on in this story that I feel like I don't want to spoil it all Like generally, I feel like majority of the enjoyment that comes from this story comes from the twists and the turns, and the less of them that you know, the more that you will enjoy. Again, we'll see, in my opinion. But if you have read it or you're looking forward to read it after my review, please do let me know on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod. You can also find the Nerdstalgic podcast on YouTube. Just type in the Nerdstalgic podcast. You can also find me on Spotify at the Nerdstalgic podcast. You can also rate me on Spotify 1 to 5 stars. And yeah, like and subscribe and all that jazz if you haven't already. And yeah, you've been listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast. I've been your host, Luke the Human, and I will catch you all in the next one. Allons-y.